not the recurrent yeast infections. Hello, Divine Feminine. Today, I want to dive in and talk about why you keep running into yeast infections at different times of your cycle every single month. You've gone to the doctor and gotten the over-the-counter medication. You keep on applying it, yet the itch still comes back. And she's coming back with a vengeance every single month, ruining your whole vibe. So before we understand why the yeast infections keep happening, let's understand the nature of yeast to begin with. Yeast is a fungus, and they love to live in damp areas like the mouth, gut, and vagina. So why do we have yeast to begin with if it's so bad? Well, small amounts of yeast actually train your gut to recognize and respond to pathogens. And it thrives in environments where sugars are the main primary source for energy. Not only that, yeast ferments sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide, which is why it's used for baking and brewing. But guess what else? This fermentation process in your system also creates a bunch of bloating. So you can literally think of it as it's creating for your stomach to rise. Now, here's another kicker. If you have recurrent yeast infections and you keep going back to your doctor and getting this prescription medication, maybe they're like, okay, we're not going to look at the root cause. We're going to prescribe to you a medication that you can use every single month, and that way you can manage the symptoms and take care of it when it comes up. These little guys are smart. They actually build a biofilm to protect them from these treatments. So if you notice that you keep using these treatments and they keep getting worse, or it's just not working anymore, they're literally building a resistance to any treatments that you're using. This is why we've got to get down to the root cause of fixing this issue. Now, when yeast is out of balance, that's when we're going to start dealing with infections. And symptoms of this can include vaginal itching and discharge, oral thrush with white patches in the mouth, skin infections that can look like red, itchy flakes on the skin, but it can also create fatigue, brain fog, sugar cravings, and joint pain. Yeast can also live on your scalp, creating things like dandruff and alopecia. Let's start talking about some of the root causes. Whenever you have too much estrogen in your system, this can create an environment to help yeast thrive. Estrogen raises glycogen in the vaginal tissues. Glycogen is basically like your body's extra storage tank, and it's a special kind of sugar that your body saves for later when it needs extra energy. It also lives in your muscles and your liver. So this could be also a sign that you may be dealing with insulin resistance, meaning that the sugar is no longer traveling to your liver and to your muscles, but to different areas of the body. You see, estrogen also impacts insulin, and insulin also impacts estrogen. So this cyclical nature can also lead into having higher sugar levels in vaginal tissue, feeding the yeast. Now, of course, if you know that you have a hormonal imbalance and you want to get those hormones in check, let's go ahead and do a 6-week hormone reset together. Click the link in the description and it will take you right there. If you have a very high sugar intake and eating tons of simple carbs like breads and pastas, donuts, all of this is literally feeding the yeast, and they are just having a field day. This is a yeast feast, okay? They are literally eating it up like it is Thanksgiving. Synthetic hormones can also play a role, such as birth control, which can also throw off your pH. Antibiotics. Not only do antibiotics kill the bad bacteria, but it also kills the good bacteria that keeps the yeast in check. And girl, if you're wearing all these tight clothes, please stop. It is literally helping the dampness thrive, and they are just huddled up in there and having a good time. So wear more breathable, open clothing so it can just kind of air out, and let's just air it out, okay? Okay. All right, now the other piece is a weakened immune system. Where's your immune system? In your gut. So we have to be mindful if we're eating tons of inflammatory foods, if you know you have an allergic reaction after you eat something, or maybe you bloat, or maybe you have a bunch of gas, or maybe your stomach is upset, or maybe you have a mood change or brain fog or joint pain, whatever it is, if you eat something and you immediately experience a reaction or you just deal with a lot of chronic inflammation, your body is sending you the signs. Let's stop. This is contributing to weakening your immune system. If we're doing a lot of the things that just wreak havoc on our immune system, this will impact how our body can respond. So let's go ahead and break down the different phases so we can kind of catch it and figure out why it's happening in certain phases of your cycle. If you notice that you're experiencing yeast infections during the time of your menstrual phase, this is due to blood raising your pH levels, temporarily disrupting the balance. During the follicular phase, you don't deal with it as much during this time, and that's because estrogen is naturally lower during this phase, so your pH is more balanced. Now, if you notice that you tend to get a yeast infection during the time of ovulation, this is the time when estrogen reaches its peak. So this can also be letting us know that we may have too much estrogen. Kind of think of it as it overpouring out of the cup. Now, what if it's during the luteal phase, maybe 1 to 1.5 weeks before your next cycle? This is when your body temporarily weakens the immune system to keep your body from attacking its natural lining that it has built up to support a healthy womb space. Now, during this time, if your immune system is already low, it can make you more susceptible to things like yeast infections, colds, flus, things like that. And not only that, your insulin sensitivity also decreases during your luteal phase, which can contribute to all those cravings that you might have as well. And typically, if we have cravings, do you think you're going to crave broccoli and a piece of salmon or steak? Maybe. But you most likely are going to crave all the junk food, the snacks, the cookies, the donuts, the stuff that's creating the issue. So, number one, let's make sure that we're taking care of our gut. I want you to get more probiotics, get more fermented foods. That's going to help you quite a bit. Remember, they're living in the gut. Incorporate more antifungal foods in your diet like garlic, coconut, oregano. Let's cut back on all of the high sugary, carby foods, and let's focus on getting more protein, more healthy fats, and more fiber. For your feminine wash, please make sure that it is not filled with a bunch of perfumes and all this stuff. We want to make sure we're using a very natural product that is not going to disrupt our system. Be mindful of when you notice these things come up. If you have a partner that eats a lot of high sugary foods, high carbs, drinks a lot of beer, things like that, yeah, it's feeding yeast in their gut too. So just be mindful of that as well. When it comes to treatment, you can use a boric acid suppository to help really knock those buggers out. It works like a charm every single time, but of course you can consult with your gynecologist for further information. We want to focus on the root cause. We want to get down to why we're actually dealing with it in the first place instead of managing it with treatment and going back and forth to the doctor. It's expensive. It's embarrassing. Nobody likes it. So let's just work with ourselves to get ourselves in balance and in check. Now, if you want to know more about the metaphysical reason of why you're dealing with these yeast infections for more of a deep emotional approach to taking care of this, click this link here and that will take you to part 2 of this video. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, thank yourself for showing up today and thank you for tuning in to Divine Feminine Wellness.